Well, welcome everyone to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960 AM every night, Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. I have the privilege of bringing you interesting interviews with some fascinating people. And early in the week, I try to do politicians and people from an economic standpoint in business. But later on in the week, I want to bring you some interesting artists and lifestyle people. And I've got a fascinating gentleman for you tonight, Count Klassy, who is a hip-hop artist, and May 22nd, he's launching his new single, is going to join me tonight and talk a little bit about the challenges of launching music career in this time in Toronto, some of the other challenges he's got, and what his new single is about. So Count Klassy, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
My privilege. It's going to be a fun conversation. I'm looking forward to it. So tell me, what's this single all about?
So the single is called Good Vibes, and it features Canadian hip-hop icon, Klassy. And Klassy, you know, he's the first Canadian rapper to be signed to a US label. And I reached out to him just through a DM, and I said, you know, are you interested in coming on this track? Here's the link to the MP3. He responded back, and he's like, I'm in. So I sent him the track. He put his vocals on it, got my engineer here in Toronto to finesse it a little bit, and we packaged it up, and we're setting it out May 22nd. We're so excited.
Fantastic. And what's the topic of the single?
So the song is called Good Vibes, and it talks about the influence of cannabis, the feeling of being at peace, even if it's just for the 3 minutes and 26 seconds you're listening to that song. And it just about taking a slow down and smelling the roses, smelling the flowers, and enjoying what you have in front of you. Because we're so busy living in this fast-paced world. And especially, I think now with the pandemic, you know, it's really getting people to think about what they're very much happy for and what they're privileged to have. And Good Vibes really kind of sums that all up together.
Well, I got to tell you, slowing down, taking a break, smelling the roses, enjoying some good vibes is exactly what we need to do. And COVID-19 probably has taught us all a little bit more about that.
Definitely.
So how long have you been a hip-hop artist?
Whoa, okay. Pretty much all my life, Ryan. No. I've been working on music now for my own music, I should say, for the last, since the beginning of 2019. So just about a year and a half now. Previously, I was doing ghostwriting for some Grammy-winning talents. I was working on lyrics, and I was also working on their social media backgrounds and bringing their presence to the digital world. And these guys, you know, there are a lot of OG artists back from the 80s, so they're not necessarily in it with the digital influence, but that's what I've been working on. And then I decided, you know what, now's my time to shine, bring these curls into the spotlight, and you know, put myself out there and see what the world thinks about me, especially being queer and kind of going into hip hop being so misogynistic as a genre, or historically as a genre.
Why is hip hop so misogynistic?
Honestly, I don't know. I think you know, hip hop, rap influenced on the struggles of street life, and especially of urban America. You know, people of color talk about politics and aggression, and since then, you know, it kind of progressed into all different ways and topics, and now we see a lot of misogyny, a lot of sex, using sex to sell, a lot of influence on drugs and money. And something, you know, along the way, you know, someone has to be like, okay, enough's enough. Let's kind of like change the path or change the course. So Count Klassy is here to kind of like make my own lane and create new hip hop, new age hip hop that, you know, sounds mainstream and has mainstream topics, but can influence new topics like, you know, anti-oppression, you know, raising up and bringing up marginalized groups, anti-misogynistic topics, and definitely queer positive topics in hip hop.
We're chatting tonight with Count Klassy, a hip hop artist launching a new single late in May. We're going to take a break for messages and get right back to you. Just stay with us for a minute. Stay with us. Well, welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're chatting tonight with Count Klassy. He is a hip hop artist. And Count Klassy, you were mentioning just before the break that hip hop is misogynistic and homophobic. Actually, you may not have used those words. I use those words. and you're a queer artist, and you said it's particularly challenging for you. Can you explain that?
Definitely. I think yes to misogyny. You know, we are starting to shift kind of the paradigms in hip hop. We're getting a lot of female-led rappers coming in. Homophobia is still huge in hip hop, especially, you know, in rap and hip hop from the islands to Caribbean. They're still quite homophobic there. And I always talk about this. There's no rapper, mainstream rapper that's gay or queer or identify under that umbrella. But we have people like Lil Nas X, who created a song, Old Town Road. It became viral, and then he came out. Or you have a pop star like Adam Lambert, who went through American Idol, became a huge success, and then he came out. There's not really any mainstream artist that I can think of, especially a gay male artist, that is into rap or hip hop or more of that rougher side of the genre, and coming into it as a gay artist. Mostly it's been, oh, here's the revelation, I'm also gay, but I'm already comfortable in my mainstream, you know, success position. So I'm able to disclose things like that. Whereas like, as I'm coming into the industry and I'm learning, you know, not many rappers want to take a chance on working with me because it might lower down their machismo, or, you know, other people may think that they're gay as well, or think that they are, you know, a little bit fruity or whatnot. And I see that a lot in, you know, the rejections I get when I submit it to different avenues and forums. They'll say, I love the beats, you know, I love your voice, I love the flow, but we're just not down with the content. And it's always, we're just not down with the content. And Count Klassy is relatively classy. I don't generally speak about vulgar things in my music. I like to put a mainstream lens on it, more of a cleaner lens on it. And it kind of is surprising to me to hear that, you know, so many avenues are not down with the content. Well, it's 2020. You know, it's time to now diversify, and I sing about that on one of my tracks on my album. It's time to diversify what hip hop is, what rap is. Let's bring in new sounds and new ways to experience our oppression, because that's where rap comes from, talking about your oppression. So why can't a gay artist talk about their oppression and still get the same amount of respect, you know, as a rapper who is very, you know, machismo and upholds such a sense of patriarchy?
Well, it's a great retort to those people that, as you say, were opposed to their repression and started singing about it in rap and hip hop. So why doesn't that resonate with them? Why can't they understand that? And frankly, not only in regards to you, but women. And why is it that you know, they're objecting to their impression means they almost have to repress females and treat them like sex objects and nothing but?
Definitely. And you see that now with all the different feuds of women-led rappers. And, you know, media likes to pin them against each other. Who is the better rapper? Is it, you know, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, Doja Cat? Is it Megan Thee Stallion? But you don't really see that kind of battle royale going on with the male rappers. They kind of create their own lane. People respect them. And okay, now they're solidified in their own lane. But when you have Nicki Minaj, it seems like she always has to compete with other female rappers to be the female rapper. Why can't there be multiple female rappers that all achieve, you know, ample amount of success, as opposed to trying to be that number one? And you see that so much in the industry. And that's something that I just want to change slowly by slowly, and working with other influential artists, producers, you know, people that are open-minded, and creating an empire essentially that's going to hopefully revolutionize the genre.
Awesome. Well, you know, it's interesting because I've spoken to a couple of different artists, and a lot of some artists aren't interested in anything from a social issue standpoint, but a lot really are. And I've had a couple of people talk about some of the major social issues of the past have really been driven by anthems. That there has been a different artist that has written about the Vietnam War or about some issue, and that song becomes almost the anthem of that social progressive movement.
Definitely. And I agree with you with the anthem. We live our lives in anthems. Whenever you look at periods of history, what was the music like? You know, how did that song dominate the sociality of people's mindsets during that time? It always comes down to the anthem of that time. And speaking of that, I don't want to say too much, but in the future, I am working on a project, and it's an LGBTQ anthem, and it's a hip hop anthem with 10 different artists, all queer, all having a verse, and it's kind of like a battle royale, but it's also kind of like us coming into the space saying, "This is us. We're queer rappers. We all came together to create a killer track." Imagine the PR, imagine the publicity on that, because that has never been done before. And I take that as an inspiration, or I'm inspired by the West Coast All-Stars back in the late 80s, early 90s. They released a track called "We're All in the Same Gang," meaning that, we may come from different backgrounds, but we all come from the same gang. We're all here to promote the same message. And that message was anti-violence on the streets. This message here is LGBTQ inclusion, and in all facets, not just your tokenization in media.
Well, I congratulate you, because you could have taken a far easier route and not done hip hop and written your lyrics for pop or something like that. That would have been more conducive to whatever your issue is. But it sounds like you're attacking it right where you need to. I'm reminded of a favorite Canadian performer of mine by the name of Tom Barlow, who I think it was like 2 decades ago wrote a song, Married by Elvis or something like that, which was about, well, if you were in love and Elvis was willing to marry you in Las Vegas, whether you were man and wife or 2 men or 2 females, love was all the same. And
Right.
And it was a pop rock song, and Toronto radio wouldn't play it.
Wow. I mean, I'm not really that shocked.
So what are the other issues you're passionate about? Obviously misogyny, homophobia. What other issues are you going to attack?
Definitely class structure. I think that's, especially now with the pandemic happening, it's very visible, the wealth disparity. Some folks are just paycheck to paycheck. Some folks have a savings. That's something that I want to address, I think later on, maybe in my second album. My first album is all about 7 deadly sins, and there's 7 tracks on it. And the new single that comes out May 22nd is off of this debut album. And essentially, I wrote 1 track for every sin, and how it just fits so perfectly in our society that we can, bop our heads to it and feel good about it. But at the same time, the messaging in it is kind of like, no, you're promoting this. We shouldn't be promoting this, but why are we dancing to this kind of thing? Right. So it's an interesting concept album. That's something that, looking at society as a whole, my degree, my background is in anthropology. So I like to apply my ethics, my morality, what I've learned, in that degree, in that field, into my songwriting and my music. And it's an interesting process. I don't know how it's going to work so far, but we'll see.
It's fascinating that you use your background in anthropology. Now, listen, you mentioned that you have an interesting network, and that network was very helpful to you in getting started. Tell me about that, please.
Yeah, definitely. So my uncle is rapper Tone Loc, legendary OG rapper and actor. And I didn't know much about him. My family really didn't talk much about him. I just knew him as my auntie, my biological auntie's partner. And so I took a trip to LA to go visit them. And through that, I was so inspired by the networks that he had, the people that were in the studio. I was, in George Brown of Kool and the Gang's, private studio. And at that time, Stevie Wonder called. And to hear Stevie Wonder's voice, that's not singing to you, but just talking about day-to-day business was remarkable. Like you always hear that voice, but just to hear him say, "Hey, how's it going? Let's talk about, this charity and this fundraiser." And that gave me goosebumps. And I'm fortunate enough to go behind the scenes on a lot of concerts, Kool and the Gang concert. I went, TLC, Keith Sweat, over in the Microsoft Theater in LA, and learning from these iconic acts, how they smooth the audience, how they get them engaged, how they hype them up. I'm sitting, side stage watching them in awe and like taking notes, being like, okay, don't talk too much about this, move on to the next set here. And I did that with Shaggy. I was watching Shaggy and Genuine and Mace here in London, and I'm sitting here like this queer kid so tiny, and all these OGs and legends are all around me. And I'm just like, do I talk to them? Do I say hi? Do I get a photo? What is the protocol? But it's definitely a fun time. Every time I travel to LA, I always meet some new people and I network with new people. And eventually I get that much further into where I need to go, as Count Klassy, because I'm doing this all on my own. I'm not asking for any handouts. I'm not asking for, anyone to promote me here and here and here. It would be great if they could, but I'm networking on my own, and I'm doing it on my own. And I think that's the true feat of being a queer artist in this space.
It's interesting. I study business, and entrepreneurs are often thought of as being someone that's got an idea and a light bulb, in the shower type point of view. And often when you talk to them, it's been connections, it's been collisions, it's been interesting people that help them get to the next step or something like that, that ended up being so critical in their development. And, an academic term, but social capital ends up being so critically important. And as I've spoken to other people like yourself, it's the same in the music industry.
It's the same in every industry. Your net worth is your network. And I love that quote. I heard it maybe 6 years back, and it always stuck with me. You can be the most popular person out there, and you're going to be fine. You may not have all this money to keep you going, but if you have a solid network that'll help you survive, keep motivated, keep on pursuing your next goal, your next task, you're going to be set in life. And I always tell that to my friends, especially my introverted friends. There's nothing wrong with being introverted, but don't be afraid to go out and say hi and, hey, how are you? What do you do in life? Let's learn more about you, because you never know how that relationship can be useful down the road. You just honestly never know. And that's something that I learned, especially in music. You don't want to burn any bridges, but you definitely want to keep your eye out for the snakes.
And how do you keep your eye out for the snakes?
I go with my gut feeling, honestly. It never lies.
Now, you said that you were doing social media for some other people prior to launching as a hip hop artist. Does that help you create a network?
Definitely. That is originally what got me, propelled me forward. Through my ghostwriting, I was able to impersonate a celebrity who had the verification marks and had the social capital and had the fan base. And then I eventually talked to a producer just through Twitter. And I ended up, saying, I'm so-and-so, I'm running their account. Let me link with you on my personal account. And I did that. And that producer actually produced all 7 of my tracks on my debut album. So it just shows you that you can network as yourself. You can network as a ghost doing ghostwriting, as long as you continuously network and continuously expand your sociality, expand the amount of people that surround you. And I always speak on 2 rings. You always want to keep a ring around you of your friends and family and the people that you're always going to trust. And then you're going to have a second ring around that of people, friends that claim they want to help you, but they'll be the first one to sell a $100 story to TMZ, right? And then, of course, you got your enemies, and your enemies are not the ring. They are literally on top of you, because you want to keep them as close as you can and always keep an eye out on them. And like I said, your gut instinct will always tell you everything, especially in the industry. If somebody sounds like a snake, moves like a snake, slithers like a snake, it's most likely because they are a snake.
But yet your rule is you keep them close so you can keep an eye on them.
Definitely. Because I may not like the individual, but they may know somebody that can help me. And, I'm not the one who categorizes everyone based on my opinion on one person. So if I don't like that one person, I'm not going to like their friends. If I like them as an individual, there's no reason why I can't network with them and be friends with them. And I've actually done that. In the past, I had a falling out with an individual, and we cut ties artistically, and we moved separately. But I still network with their networks and what they provided and what they brought to the table. So there's always a benefit in pretty much everything you do. You just have to be careful, and you have to also be strategic.
Yeah. And what are you doing during this pandemic? Are you able to network? Are you writing? Are you able to be creative?
Yes, I'm working on my second album right now. I'm writing on that. I do have a bit of a writer's block at this moment. So whenever that happens, I hop on my social media. I start following a bunch of people, get engagement going, start liking random people's posts because every like means that your name shows up. Every comment means that your name shows up. And it's really a digital marketing game at this point. There's no reason why you shouldn't be marketing yourself on social medias. It's not like you don't have the time to do so. Besides that, just been doing live videos, creating content, creating Instagram stories, just keeping my content up so that I stay relevant and people will still want to engage with Count Klassy.
Seems to me that LGBT rights have moved forward an unbelievable amount over the course of the last decade, 2 decades, and it almost that it's most segments of society almost completely accept it. What still needs to be accomplished? What still are you fighting for?
I think right now at the forefront is transgender rights. I think right now there's still a huge stigma on trans folks, gender non-conforming folks, non-binary folks, and anyone who really falls under that trans umbrella. And you see that with the murdered trans folk here in Toronto. There was a huge community scare with the serial killer that was out and about. And, we have to do better as a community. The L's, the G's, and the B's have to support our T's. And Dave Chappelle even makes a joke in his Netflix special, the alphabet people are on the bus, the L's, B's, and the L's, the G's, and the B's are at the front, and the T's are at the back, away from everyone else. That's not acceptable. And I think one thing as Count Klassy, I try to make it apparent that I want to be a strong ally for my trans friends, my trans fans, my gender non-conforming fans, because I hear you, I see you, and if you can't find that ally out there, let me be that ally for you. And that's the one thing right now when it comes to queer issues that I think should be at the forefront. And on top of representation in media, getting more queer representation so that our younger youth have people to look up to. I remember being a kid, and I'm 28 now, so I'm talking maybe like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, there was no role models on television or even music, and there was queer people on television, but they played that tokenized gay role that usually had a terrible story arc and ended up in a death or a suicide, and that was not acceptable. And I had Bobby Burke from Netflix Queer Eye, Netflix's Queer Eye, relay a message to me and promoted, my last track, Too Klassy for You, 2K4Y, about queer representation and the importance of supporting, queer artists. Him supporting me. He doesn't even know who I am, but he knows I'm a queer artist and he wanted to support me on that. Same with Perez Hilton. He delivered a video for me as well to support me on the remix of 2K4Y, and just the importance of queer representation once again. We need to be loud, we need to be vibrant, we need to be heard, but we also need to be respected. And I think that comes 2 ways as well. There's a lot of aggression when it comes to trying to educate others on queer rights or even, minority rights or oppression-based rights. And some people get angry and some people assume that you should know what they're talking about, but it's up to us to educate others and create a more inclusive and diversified future. And I write that even just starting in hip hop. If I can come in as Count Klassy, wow, like super flamboyant, but also like hood and in your face, creating and mixing all these realms, we can start diversifying the portfolio of hip hop and creating hopefully better representation, not even for, queer people, but for any other minority group or oppressed group out there. I think right now with the technology we have, the internet, instant communications, the amount of information that's available on Google, there's no reason why we are still oppressing one another, and there's no reason why we can't embrace a more inclusive future.
Count Klassy, I love your attitude. Thank you so much. If people want to follow your music, follow you. How do they contact you, and how do they get a copy of your music?
Definitely. You can follow me on every social media. It's Count with a C, Klassy with a K. And if you want to stream me, I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube, Amazon. You can just Google me and all of the streaming sites will come up and you can find me anywhere. I love to socialize, so please add me, follow me, and let's become friends.
Count Klassy, let's be friends. And your single that's coming out late May is called what?
It's called Good Vibes, featuring Claire, and it's coming out May 22nd.
Well, Count Klassy, you have some good vibes. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it.